Vamos a esperar por Cari. Okay. All right. Well, we are probably starting. Hello, everybody. Good evening. Good evening.
Hola.
Yes. And thank you all for being here tonight. It's a wonderful night, actually, so extremely thank you. And so at Penn, I think that we are extremely fortunate to have among us this fabulous writer and activist from Puerto Rico, Yolanda Arroyo Pizarro. And our luck is possible thanks to the generous support and the cooperation between the departments of Roman languages, the Center for Africana Studies, the Latin American Studies program, and of course, the Kelly Writers House. This is I really love this place, so thank you for it. And so my name is Professor Odette Casamayor. I am associate professor at the Department of Romance Languages, and this is actually my first year here, so that's why probably some of you don't know me. So, but please now, I will allow me to briefly introduce our speaker, Yolanda Arroyo Pizarro, who is an award-winning Afro-lesbian, novelist, short story writer, essayist, and feminist activist from Puerto Rico, as I have said before. She generally stresses racial, gender, and sexual issues in her combative and non-conformist work. She is also the director of the Department of Afro-Puerto Rican Studies, a performative project of creative writing based at the EDP University of San Juan. And she is also she also founded the chair of Ancestral Black Women. It's actually the
Cátedra de Mujeres Negras Ancestrales.
Cátedra de Mujeres Negras Ancestrales in Puerto Rico. And this organization has been founded in response to the United Nations call to celebrate the International Decade of Afro-Descendants, starting in 2015 and ending in 2024. Okay. The chief editor, so she's also the chief editor of the literary journal Revista Boreales, and she regularly contributes to newspapers such as Claridad, La Expresión, El Nuevo Día, and El Vocero. As a creative writer, Yolanda has published several poetry and fiction books, which some of them are outside for sale, and some of them have received multiple awards, like the Pen Club Puerto Rico National Short Story Award, the Prize of the Institute of Puerto Rican Culture, and the National Prize of the Institute of Puerto Rican Literature back in 2008. Her work has been translated into German, French, Italian, English, Portuguese, and Hungarian. How does it sound? I'm curious.
Very confusing.
Could you read at least the title?
No, of course not.
So, without further introduction, I'll ask you, please, to warmly welcome our speaker tonight, Yolanda Arroyo Pizarro. And thank you.
Thank you for having me here. I am very pleased to be here with Odette, Annabelle, and all the people in the department and in the University of Penn. I divide my presentation in, I always try to do this, it's been successful in other times, so I hope it will be the same here. 3 parts. I'm going to read a message for you in English. I have some of the slides that shows the work that we're doing in the Cátedra de Mujeres Negras Ancestrales en Puerto Rico, el proyecto performativo dentro de la Universidad EDP University, que tiene en estos momentos el mejor proyecto de publicación, for me, the best publishing project that is in Puerto Rico right now in terms of anti-racist books. And so I'm going to show you a few slides, then I will start reading my presentation. And at the end, I want to read for you a few examples of my work and the works of others inside the Cátedra de Mujeres Negras Ancestrales. Déjame ver si es este. No. ¿Y este? Este. Since 2015, this is what we are working with the Decenio Internacional de los Afro-Descendientes. As you can see, one of our, el logo, the brand is the Sankofa bird, which is always telling us to look at the future, to look forward, but not always remember, not to forget, to look back our roots, to look back our ancestry. And in this side, you can see some of the publications that we have been doing inside the Cátedra. It's very important that we all notice that for us in the Cátedra, the cover in the books, it's part of the message. And I grew up without any books having covers that shows people like me. And for me, it's very important that since the covers, desde la portada, haya gente negra, haya negritud, there should be identified Black people in the covers. This is one of the last projects inside the Cátedra, which is trying to make salas de lectura antirracista, reading rooms. Se puede decir sala de lectura, ¿verdad? Reading rooms, anti-racist reading rooms inside every single organization, school, university that they wanted to adopt books like this. And this is me with my tiara, because every time I read one of the books, which is that one, Pelo Bueno, Good Hair, is a book that the readers can start reading kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and I wanted the kids, especially the girls, to identify that the Afro is like a crown, and it's an exercise of autoestima, self-love. Yeah. It's magnificent every time we read a book like this, and the little kids, want to share every one of them the tiara during the readings. And this is part of the investigation that we use. This is the archives, los archivos nacionales, the archives that are in Old San Juan. As you can see, the date, 1823 and until 1827. And also this box is 1799 to 1825. We in Puerto Rico do not have the tradition of the slave narratives. Still, sometimes I dream that one of these days, while we are in the archives looking, we come to find a manuscript of a former slave, a runaway slave, and since we still do not have that, what we do is that we study every single of the records of the Spanish governors of Puerto Rico and the political and civil affairs that has to come with slavery and post-slavery, the abolition. And every time we found a woman that made something that took our attention, something for their family and for the ones that are around them, then we create that memoir, that memory, using the creative writing process, using poetry, using short story. We even have novels inside the library of anti-racist books that we've been writing. I'm gonna leave that now, and I'm gonna start reading from my presentation. Last week, in Puerto Rico, a group of cisgenders, young boys, made a streaming of the haunting, la cacería, and then the killing of a black trans woman was named Alexa. She was using the ladies' bathroom at the McDonald's. My heart was so broken into so many pieces for the brutality of the hate crime that it made me think about this reflection that I started to write in 2014. The reflection is this one. I'm in love. I'm in love with a woman. I'm in love, and I think that experience should be told. We already know that we fall in love several times in a lifetime, sometimes a few of those times with such intensity that it feels like a tsunami. And when it happens, it is overwhelming. We fall in love, and everybody is supposed to rejoice for you. Everybody give you congratulations, like the time that you were in school. Then you remember that your friends and you celebrate it. It's supposed to be something cool. But imagine that you fall in love and you cannot tell anyone. Well, let's not forget that many women of my generation and older generations suffer that taboo, being in love with another woman and not being able to tell anyone. They save it with total silence, and it was almost like it was a state secret. Shutting that up because there were so many risks that now make no sense, and the new generations fail to sometimes comprehend or to understand. Because now we have equal marriage. As a matter of fact, I myself, married my wife Sulma in 2015. But in that time, they were terrible. You could lose a lot, so much respect, dignity, lucidity. You could cry feeling emotionally devastated, and the crying came because our parents, our relatives and friends sometimes turned against us. We did grieve, we felt rejection, finally ostracism. Many of my friends tried to commit suicide, and others succeeded. Some of them took refuge in drugs or alcohol. I hid the secret. I remained silent for a while. I had to hide. I lived in the closet and came out of it only when I was kind of sure that the world had changed. That at this time I was not going to die of pain or would have to kill myself. Or someone will be killing me like they killed Alexa last week. There are still a few of those stories happening today, as you can see. But believe me when I say that before 1970s, 1980s, the 90s, there were many, many, many more. So that's, I think, is what I write. Because those stories are worth telling, not with the idealization of the past, but with the rawness of the present to secure that they do not happen again, at least in the near future. This is our life at stake, showing this visibility. Now, not idealizing a story does not mean that we have to take away the magic of the story. I always feel that sometimes I feel like a prophet who announces and informs about love by telling those stories. For example, when I was little, I had an accident in my left hand, this hand. The boy sitting on the desk in front of me, Eliseo, was very annoying and constantly turned back to irritate me. In one of those pranks that he always made, he tried to stab me with his pencil, and my reflex was to prevent the pencil from sticking into my face, so I used my hand an arm to protect myself. The movement made Eliseo snap the tip of his pencil in my left hand. I don't know if I say that this was in 3rd grade, but until today, I still have the mark of the pencil tip inserted in my hand. Looks like a birthmark, como un lunar, pero ahí está la punta. Mírenla ahí. The result for me was magic. Because if I rub the tip enough with my nails through the skin, I can use the piece of carbon graphite to write. Believe it or not, it has served me as an asset in the great game of love sometimes. For example, I used to tell a woman that interests me that I will write your name with the skin of my left hand. It did not work, of course. Of course not. But that does not mean that I created expectation, or at least for the woman who piqued my interest. If you are thinking that maybe that's how I seduced Sulma, well, the answer is yes. She's my wife. The important fact is that you create a magical atmosphere while waiting for the story that I am about to tell. And for me, the same happens when I'm writing literature. And so does it replicate when we are talking about gay, lesbian, and queer literature. So writing about these lesbians' realities means opening the space between the magic and the reader. There are connections that take place as if you were in a parallel universe. In 1998, I had a daughter. Her name is Aurora. When Aurora was 4 years old, she asked me if she was the greatest love of all for me in the whole world, in the whole universe, in the whole, galaxies. And I have learned to say to these questions immediately, yes. And to add, you are what I love most in this world, and I can prove it. That's what I said to her. Her eyes grew large. She asked, how? Prove it. Then I replied, as passionate writers should answer their craft. I said, in our chest, we all have a heart, and that heart beats. And I asked the woman creator of the universe for my heart to tell the name of the person I would love the most. You cannot tell anyone, but it's a secret. If you put your ear to my chest, near my heart, you hear not only the pounding, but the beating that says your name, Aurora, 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 como un latido, a pulsation. My daughter came up to my chest from that moment on and always heard her name out of my heart, always. She then spent a few days and then came back to me with attitude and asked me why, if she put her hand on her own heart, she could not hear the pounding saying, Yolanda, Yolanda, Yolanda. And I replied that she was born in October like me, and those who are born in October should wait for that device to activate when they celebrate their 5th birthday. So, I'm a storyteller. So the day of her birthday, she came out of bed excited. She came looking for me and said, Mommy, Mommy, listen to my heart. It finally says, Yolanda, Yolanda, Yolanda. So as you can see, our craft, it has to have magic. Magic is necessary to storytelling, to live, and to love. Last summer, during the revolt that obliged the resignation of our governor, a group of activists summoned a protest that they called perreo combativo. I guess the translation is like combative twerking?
Yeah, that would be.
That would be a good translation. These manifestations were supposed to show Puerto Rico that the LGBT community was also a political force, that we there to dance, to make the twerking, the perreo, and be visible in front of the old San Juan Cathedral very near the governor's mansion. At the end of the perreo combativo, we also arranged a besathon. This is like a kiss marathon.
Yeah.
In the steps, in the stairs, en las escalinatas of the cathedral. We as a community, and artists, poets, singers, LGBTTQI+, we wanted to be very, very visible during these manifestations. And as a matter of fact, that night, the same night, the governor resigned. So for us, the perreo was a success. The twerking was un éxito. And the next day, the conservatives were offended because of the perreo in the escalinatas of the cathedral. I wrote 2 status in Facebook and Twitter. I'm gonna read them to you. They were in Spanish, but I made a translation in English in order to share with you today. One of them says, "The Cathedral of Old San Juan bought and sold slaves. The cathedral gave permission to kill women for being witches. The cathedral tortured black bodies, dismembered them with his inquisitorial paraphernalia, dismembered them after raping and sodomizing them. The cathedral is criminal. His religious and pedophile story is worse than un perreo combativo." Also, I wrote, "The Cathedral of Old San Juan began to be built by enslaved Taínos and Africans in 1521, enslaved black people. It was completed almost to 1540, but between one thing and another, arrangements were continued even until 1917. I'm trying to let them know that we knew this history. While it was being built, men, women, and children were raped inside those walls. People were murdered, even during the Inquisition trials, because everybody knows that the Inquisition in the Caribbean has their nucleus inside the Cathedral of Puerto Rico. Even the tomb, la tumba de Juan Ponce de León, a genocidal colonizer, is there. So what is this lloradera, this crying for perreal, for twerking, for desecrate such an emblematic crime and pedophilia center? That's what I wrote. In my writings, I try to combine identity with this magic. It's like having an epiphany over that first encounter with the woman whom you liked the first time. I wrote in 2011, as a part of the worldwide celebration of the International Year of Afro-Descendants, the poem Raza, A Story of Bullying at School, that was also published in the book Letters to My Bully, an anthology by Glover Lane Press, that was published in United States and England in 2012. Then in 2013, I was invited to participate in the anthology Right for Light, a collection of true stories and poems about finding light in the darkness, with the same poem. This publication was made in Ghana, Africa, and the United Kingdom. The poem then was transformed into a prose or narrative piece. I tend to do those kind of exercise and experiments myself. And it says something like this. When I was 8 years old, I was clever. At this point, I already knew that during lunch break, in order to prevent my classmates from joking about my hair and my color, I had to go inside the bathroom and eat there, write, speak with my imaginary friend, laugh, practice the poems they taught us in class, study for the science test, pump some albuterol in my lungs against the asthma attacks, and I learned to see the world from my confinement in the bathroom of Colegio San Vicente Ferrer de Cataño. I spent several years making a hideout of that place. Every night, I prayed in Catholic language to the patron virgins of all countries and to all the martyr saints of all invented councils, conclaves, and the rest of the Roman Catholic horse to solve my predicament, that which, by God's very will and mistake, had adhered to my body when I was born, my blackness. Every night I prayed to wake up white the next day. As you can see, the request went unanswered every single time. And it became evident that the Bible verses that reads, whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive, if you have faith, was not but a cruel lie. Yet every morning, I went back to being black. I never fit in any role. I always lived adjusting myself, overcoming something, being resilient, showing histrionically that it did not bother me when my classmates joked that my hair looked like barbed wire, or when they alleged I was Medusa, and one of them played at cutting his hand by simply touching my hair and then putting ketchup for their bleeding wounds. Then came the ketchup mess, also my hair, or some experimental bubble gum placed there by the baldest. I was not able to manage my curls or my overgrown afro, so my family turned into a straight and melody mass after an imposition of burning chemicals that did not solve the issue, but made it worse. In order to calm me down, Abuela Petronila, Abuelita, told me that I had been born white and blonde, but that in a moment of distraction, while she tried to make me fall asleep on her bosom, I had slipped and fell into the cup of coffee that she was drinking. It was a cute tale, but it didn't comfort me. It didn't fit in my reality whenever I attempt to conquer a white and blonde young boy whom I deserve to conquer by divine decree in order to improve, supposedly, my race. With that objective in mind, my own quest for Camelot, I took it upon myself to colonize the heart of any white man, white woman, and to explain to his parents why I deserve them and they deserve me. Almost 30 years later, 40 years later, I still feel that this fable lie determined my life and what I am. Maybe that's why when I write, I feel such magnificent black woman, as I should be feeling always. So human, so woman. Maybe thanks to this branding and imprinting, or by its misfortune, I feel proud now of my roots, proud now of my ancestors, proud of discovering that I am the descendant of runaway slave, fighters, reformers, maroons, cimarronas, cimarrones. So you see, being a black lesbian woman and talk about my skin color and the person that I love is fundamental for my art. Also, it is important to talk about being a lesbian and an Afro-lesbian in Puerto Rico. I guess this is why I keep writing fiction books. Gay literature for men in Puerto Rico celebrates a great advantage. Names like Manuel Ramos Sotero, Larry Lafontaine, David Caleb Acevedo, aka Eric Durandal, Moisés Agosto Rosario, Luis Negrón, Ángel Lozada, Carlos Vázquez Cruz, Ángel Antonio Ruiz, y Max Charries, entre otros, have been taking the lead with many published books talking about the homosexual experience, the gay experience. Our representation in lesbian fictions and poems is not that much. It's just a portion. There are lesbian books by, for example, Aixa Ardín Pauneto, and I'm saying these names because I learned to give homage to the people that were prior me, that were estuvieron antes que yo, y abrieron el camino, open, ¿verdad? Our roads, thank you. So I'm gonna repeat these women writers: Aixa Ardín Pauneto, Nemir Matos Cintrón, Liliana Ramos Collado, Amarilis Pagán, y Zulma Oliveras Vega, entre otras. These are all poets. In 2009, the openly gay literary collective Homoerótica was born, and that movement boosted the interest in becoming more acquainted with this subject. Knowing that since that time I was surrounded by warriors and supporters made me confident enough to publish then my novel Caparazones, Carapace in English, in 2010. And later on, yes, I don't have a copy of Caparazones, but Violeta, okay. It came later, the other lesbian novel, Violeta. Also with that push, Zulma, my wife, and I were inspired to put together the first openly lesbian anthology in Puerto Rico, which name was Cachaperismos. This was a big step. We were 14 lesbian writers. The name Cachaperismos was an empowered title derived from a depict form of calling a lesbian in the isla. Tú eres una cachapera. We wanted to appropriate the stigmatic term in order to make our circumstance visible and denounced from that point of view. Then in 2012, we published a second Cachaperismos. This time there were 13 brave lesbian writers. I don't know if you have heard, but there is a new field in brain science, social neuroscience. And this field studies the circuits in two people's brains that activate while they interact. And the new view of compassion from social neuroscience is that our default writing is to help. That being said, if we pay attention to the other person, al otro, a la otra, we automatically empathize. We automatically feel with them. And this is exactly what happens, or this is exactly what I feel it happens when I write about stories of skin and identity. That circuit gave me the strength to keep on denouncing. Then other books came alive. Negras, Violeta, que fue el primero que enseñamos, un poemario titulado Perseidas, que es el poemario que incluye todos los poemas que le escribí a mi novia para enamorarla y para convencerla de que se casara conmigo. Antes y después de suspirar, another short story book. So as you see, writing also has everything to do with empathy and to feeling others and to feel with others. Let me do this exercise with you. I do this with the students that I visit throughout the island, thanks to the program, to the EDP University program, that we went to schools and used those different books to make readings inside elementary schools, intermediate schools, and also high school schools. Let me do this exercise with you. Could you please all stand up en la sala? Try to be as near as possible of each other, that your shoulder touch the other person's shoulder. Yes, very good. I'm gonna move my hands and you are going to swing in the same directions of the hands. Just the shoulders, very good. Slowly, very good. Touching the shoulders. And then fast, more fast. Close your eyes and imagine you are in the sea, in a boat, en un barco esclavista, en un slave boat. Open the eyes and stop and give yourself an applause. You did very well. And sit. Thank you. I don't know if you knew, but this movement, our ancestors were very familiar with them since they lasted almost 100 days since Africa to the Caribbean. Can you relate to that? 100 days, almost 3 months or more. Sometimes there were hurricanes. Sometimes the boat just get lost. And as you know, studying the history of our ancestors, not everyone arrived at the Caribbean intact. Some of them decide to jump to the sea, or they just, were killed during the transit. That is precisely what I felt when I wrote. I tried to make a connection. That's why I wrote resistance, fiction, memoirs about slave history, about being a Black African descendant woman, a rebel, a cimarrona. In my writings, I had to deal with oppression, with burden, to overcoming the lack of freedom, subjugated in numerous ways and faced many strenuous times. One of the poems in Saeta, for example, says like this: I remember Middle Passage. I recall the waves, the salt water vomits, the excretory pains, while my fingers place with the maderos of the boat. I remember el tumba que tumba, que tumba, que tumba, the girl next to me who touched my elbow and died the next morning, the mother who committed asphyxia to her baby boy out of compassion, Those two women, friends from the same village, glitter in 4 pupils, magic in 4 eyebrows. They make a promise to each other. Bada boom tem bom. The light-skinned one beat the other in the neck. Then both closes their eyes. Arrows, another poem. The master walks around us, Wabi. Here we are, 2 slaves, too similar with distant color skin, with different lenguas. I do not know why he called me Teresa. I do not know why he called you Juana. My mother used to sing my name, mi, Changwe, yo, esa soy, as it was the tambora, as it was the rain over my head, while my continent is screaming. Rain sticks open their mouths, kalimba drums dancing, marimba ankle shaking. There is no kingdom warrior after us to capture me and my sisters, my brothers, my little ladies to play with, the djembe, the doom, the bugaroo, the hand percussion, while looking for giraffes and turtles, my little lionesses, my weak ones, those who cry even if they are strong, even if they are tall, my dark muscles like mangrove monsters. The master walks around us, Robbie. Para él yo soy Teresa or Therese. Para él tú eres Juana or Jane. He desenfunda his penis. It's my time to wait until he finish with you. But you are not crying this time, brave guerrera. The sound of my boy is no maraca. There's no flute. There is no sound, actually. No mamoromba balafo power. No hay nada de voz. And you look my eyes, and I look yours. Thanks to this dictate that I intuit in some fashion is when I started to work on the book Las Negras. I use the following dedication in Las Negras. To the historians, for leaving us out. Here we are again, present of body, current color, rejecting invisibility and refusing to be erased. And the fact is that I always brought in my mind the Nigerian proverb that dictates, until the lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt, we always glorify the hunter. On the other hand, Gloria Steinem, the American feminist, had already infected me with a voracious and disturbing idea, which applies to those who tell the story always from the male or patriarchal point of view. And she remarks, I have met brave women who are exploring the other edge of human possibility with no history to guide them. Those guided by history's logic, or maybe still without any necessarily known history, or what we call her story, I took upon myself to challenge the hunter's glory and talk about the Ancestras from the standpoint of a new insurgent literature of the Afro-Descendants. We, as I told you before, do not have the slave narratives genre or category as the stories told by distinguished male or female slaves, or even biographies narrated by them. But doing this research, for me, Blackness, and in my case, lesbianism in Puerto Rico go together. for obvious reasons, but also for not so obvious reasons. The prejudice that still happens against Afro-Boricuas for their skin color make me sick. Our dark color is still an issue in the island. 2 years ago, a woman on Facebook, in a very public manner, asked me to stop writing about race after the publication of Las Negras. She said writing about Black women, she understood this was disrespectful for the whites. So writing about these things is also for me an act of compassion. Let me share with you an experience that happened to one of my favorite authors, Daniel Goleman. He's an expert in emotional intelligence, and he has published many books, but I love a lecture that he wrote entitled, "Why Aren't We More Compassionate?" And he said, one day, it was a Friday, at the end of the day, I was going down to the subway. It was rush hour, and thousands of people were streaming down the stairs. And all of a sudden, as I was going down the stairs, I noticed that there was a man slumped to the side, shirtless, not moving, and people were just stepping over him and keep walking, hundreds and hundreds of people. And because my urban trance had been somehow weakened, I found myself stopping to find out what was wrong. The moment I stopped, half a dozen other people immediately reached the same guy. And we found out that he was Hispanic, he didn't speak any English, he had no money, he'd been wandering the streets for days, starving, and he'd fainted from hunger. Immediately, someone went to get orange juice, some other brought a hot dog, someone brought a Subway cup, and this guy was back on his feet immediately. But all it took was the simple act of noticing. Through this experience of woman, I realized that the stories that I was telling were very important. People stopped to look at them and to ask what it is wrong. Maybe with the story, maybe because of the characters, perhaps with the world we all are in. And I think the pinnacle of this is for me that I can write about these issues and that allow me to fight for those causes too. Of course, I also discovered during this journey that the erotica is a great fighting tool too. Tamarind. When you take a tamarind with the tips of the fingers, hand open, and you remove the shell and place in the crush and lick it and suck it and push your tongue, taste and remove the pulp from the seed to nibble piece by piece and press against the walls of lumpy skin, swollen, raised, pink, a bit muddy, and promises with closed eyes to caress the soul deeply and guarantee to come to redeem any past experience, get near to heal, and place a Band-Aid in the heart, and then say with your lips in my bitten lips, pegadita a mi boca, that you are my todo, you are my everything, and you promise me the best nights and the finest days, and then you play with the rolls of my negra afro hair, and you bite my back and draw me hickeys, marks in my breast, and you stamp a cardinal in the neck because your hand has closed, and whisper then you the name, that important name, and you dance my hips and I dance the pelvis while the juice set spill all my cracks, todas mis endijas. Y la masa está casi al acabarse, near over, is almost at the end, fruity, scarce bones. You jab and poke and char with your hips, my hips, and swear to keep jabbing as long as you pierce my lower lip and penetrates 1, 2, 3 fingers, and open my valleys, all of them, and mingle all the sour flavors, bitter, sometimes sweet, sugary, syrupy. And then this woman stretches and inclines and plays to embestirte, and she comes. Then, and only then, it is the time when you truly have experienced the flavor of the tamarindo. Finally, let me share this fragment of history with you. The history called this fragment of 1642, the first praise for Puerto Rico women in the Americas. It says like this: women are the most beautiful of all Indian islands. They are honest, virtuous, hardworking, and so cute. Governors Don Enrico and Don Iñigo said that all the wise men in Spain must come to marry in Puerto Rico. This final note means that I, Yolanda Arroyo Pizarro, woman, black and lesbian, also write to describe Puerto Rican women, to praise them, to criticize them, to reflect on all of the things that happen to them, to us, because that is how I love. I love a woman, and I fell in love with women. And I also have the perfect right to write stories that reveal the blunt truth, that in Puerto Rico, there are white, black, mestiza, lesbian writers, and we want to create an army of them. We want to build a strong tradition for the continuity of telling our truths in these stories. And in order to achieve this, we need to recruit. So my question to all of us is, who will be the brave ones? Thank you.
Thank you. It's the least we can say right now. Probably you have questions, yeah, to Yolanda. I was sure, so please.
Thank you. Ella ha venido a todas mis actividades. Yo la amo.
I love you too, you know.
Thank you.
Well, when we were doing the exercise that you recommended about the waves,
Mm-hmm.
it was it was interesting that we were moving, yes, and in the moment that you mentioned that we were in a slavery boat,
The slave ship.
a slave ship,
Mhm.
yes, I stopped. I couldn't.
I know.
Yes. Why I couldn't move? Because I felt the pain. I felt the sensation of this scare. Yes. And it's something that always happened to me with this kind of topics, because I feel in my skin and in my essence, in my soul, that I have heritage, the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then why I bring this idea, or why this come to my mind in this moment, because we have had many discussions with the people who criticize the literature and talk about the literature of Latin America, yes, and talk about the importance of the creation of the writer as a genius who write from the words, yes, from the role of the words, the paper of the function of the literature, yes, itself.
The language.
The language,
Mm-hmm.
yes, and not about the pain, and not about the feelings, and not about the sensations. It's like this kind of act revolutionary in which we express ourselves, it's not considered literature, real literature, because it's not working on language, but working on feelings. Yes, and it's very hard that we can talk by using language, but not expressing or not talking about what is important to us. Yes, because language, this language is not representing to us. It's not our language. I mean, we were colonized. Yes, my ancestor didn't speak Spanish. My ancestor didn't speak English. Yes, well, I don't speak English either, but I'm trying.
Me neither. We are trying.
Yes, and then what I mean is I can, even though I try to express myself in this language, there are other things that can be expressed by just breaking the language. Yes, and then, well, you as a writer, yes, how can you deal with this situation, you know, that well, to try to be a writer, to be recognized as a writer, yes, when you are emphasizing on what is important to us and not what is important to the literary studies.
Yes, because I don't believe the truth that the colonizers are telling me. I don't care what they say about the language or about the expression that the content has emotional meaning and therefore is less than a literary expression. I don't believe them. I just don't give them, you know, the credit. I just kept, you know what, at some point in my life, I was part of a very small community of deaf people that use American Sign Language and learned how they express themselves with so much emotion because signing is emotional. Signing has everything to do with las señas caseras. Yo no sé cómo se dice, se puede decir en inglés, the home sign that they learn inside the house. Domestic signing. First, prior to be like a language or if yes, and maybe inside that community I learned that emotion is everything, and we don't necessarily have to, you know, go to or to believe what they told us about how to write and what to write. For years, now we are looking, I was talking with Odette during lunch. For example, she's going to be part of this week, at the end of the week, to this group of women that are working with Black women literature in Cuba. Yeah. But 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that could be possible because our literature, Cuban literature, Puerto Rican literature, Dominican Republic, and the island, the Caribbean, was not in the position of being recognized as a literature with the credential enough to be expressing anything. But we changed that. We said that cannot be possible. So that's why I keep using emotional language inside not only the poetry, because I grew up knowing that in the poems you can do that, but not in the short story or the narrative, in fiction, you know, in prose. But then we learned that we can do that too, en lo que sea, en donde quiera que quisiéramos hacerlo. A tal punto de que mira dónde estamos ahora. This is how we come. This fight was maybe start with one person, with one woman, with one Black woman, maybe one Black lesbian woman, and then we said, oh, you know what? This can happen. We can make this happen. So I think the secret is the community. Odette, tú, yo, todas las que escribimos, todas las que queremos hacer, queremos expresar la realidad, telling our truth we come together. We do not do that, in individual, in isolates. It cannot happen in the isolation. We have to be an army.
Thank you. I will actually take into your question, and it's or comments because it was so rich, and it's thinking about performance. Thinking that what is behind all what you have been doing here. I was also looking into the pictures, so this is again the performance of a way of create these communities and through emotions, of course. So I was thinking this, what is if you can tell us if there is a more direct, beyond what I am saying, what I'm imagining here, is if there is more direct relationship between your literary writing, your activism, your and the performance. So if it is the performance, that probably like something that like say like a river that is putting all of this together.
So. I think because I started with the playwriting very young, maybe the performance comes naturally, the expression. I learned not to divide that. I learned to include everything, the drama, the playwriting, the emotions. I showed this photograph because when you were talking about the sea exercise, I want to show you that I do that exact same experiment with children in the classes. In this case, one of the experiments was to imagine that the abuelas or that the ancestor use the head, the afro, to draw a map of escape using the hair, the natural hair. And I'm giving them instructions to start, empezar en la frente, going to the right, going to the left, imagining that they have braids, and inside the braid, they are the escape map, because our ancestors used our hair in some powerful performative things, but it was, for us now it's a performance, but in that time, it was something that life or death.
Yeah, it was survival.
They needed to escape. And they keep using other things that wasn't the official language. Maybe they did not know Español, Spanish, but they use de los sonidos de los tambores. Claro, from una hacienda to otra hacienda. So, as you can see, oppressed people are the more creative ones always, because they need to use, to think out of the box and try to fool the oppressed, el opresor, el amo, using other ways to communicate. So let's do that also in literature. Let's use language and thinking out of the box and be creative enough to connect and to create other things. So that's why I showed you that picture. ¿Alguien más?
Gracias, Yolanda.
Gracias.
Quisiera saber un poco de los archivos con los cuales trabajan ustedes, el grupo de la cátedra, ¿verdad? Y específicamente me interesaba saber un poco sobre, pues, bueno, aquí viene la respuesta.
Esta es la respuesta.
¿Qué tipo de documentos aparecen en los archivos? Y pues, si...
En los archivos aparece, qué buena pregunta. The time.
Can I probably translate?
Please.
For the audience? Or if you want to do it yourself.
No, do it.
Just what kind of archival documents are there?
They're different. This is a group of ¿cómo se dice anuncio? Advertisement in different newspapers within the, let me check the year. Aquí, 1851. Look the age of this boy, 6 years, 6 años. Usamos lo que se llaman los certificados de compraventa.
Certificates, how to call them? For the sale, for selling,
for selling
and buying.
Certificados de bautismo.
Baptism.
Inside the church. Esta es uno de compraventa.
Okay.
27 years. Usamos, you use el catálogo de africanos con el apellido del amo de la Sociedad de Genealogía de Puerto Rico.
So it's a catalog with the names, but it's the name of from the slave owners.
And the most important one is the one that is already digitalized completely in the Library of Congress. You go to Google and you write Library of Congress, Gaceta de Puerto Rico, and the years 1806 to 1902, and you are going to have all the archives from those years. And for us, it's easier because it's in a computer, and we can do searches. We can set esclava, esclavo, esclavo huido, esclavo bozal. I'm using the different classifications. Esclavo coartado, there are different classifications. And inside the research that we do, we, of course, have to make the definition for all these categories in order for them to understand. But this is the one of the best.
What is interesting is, if I understood correctly, so you take all this information, archival information, and then you change. So you use all of this. So your group, La Cátedra, uses all this information and convert it into creative. Okay, yes, creative.
For example,
it's only narrative, or also what else? It's narrative, poetry,
every genre.
Yeah,
every genre.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Poetry, short stories.
It's whatever that comes through this information.
There is a novel. This is one of this is one novel. And we also not only the slaves, but also the black women that after the abolition makes a great contribution to the society. For example, Juana Colón es una de ellas. And look at all this. These all are books that we create using the research from history and then creating them, using whatever we found in the archives and creating a story for them. They are, se reviven, they came alive in the stories. Yeah. But after that, prior that, they never were talking. There was nobody talking about this because they were just in the archives. Yeah. But now we have, and miren las portadas, look at the covers. I never have covers with black people in the covers during my years of study. Not even kinder, first grade, second grade, not even 10th grade, not even 12th grade. The first book with a portada with a black person in the portada was in my college years. And still today, this is the reality for some of the Puerto Ricans. We are trying to change that. We are trying to change that. I cannot believe how we allow that. It cannot be allowed anymore. My identity has to be in every single part of my education. So.
America, yeah, sorry. America, yes.
Muchas gracias, Yolanda. Tenía una pregunta respecto al un poco estas historias de visibilización de la cultura afrocaribeña. ¿Sientes que el proceso es más desde afuera hacia Puerto Rico? Es decir, que, por ejemplo, tú has recibido muchos reconocimientos fuera de Puerto Rico también. ¿O también sientes que a la par, al mismo momento, la sociedad de Puerto Rico o los gobiernos, no necesariamente el gobierno central, pero tal vez gobiernos locales o la universidad, está generando narrativas que permiten visibilizar estas historias no oficiales? So what I ask is that if you've gained a lot of recognition and awards outside of Puerto Rico, but I wonder do you think that the same way as is the society within Puerto Rico, maybe through local governments or universities, is trying to build up other alternative stories from the official one where Afro-Caribbean people was not recognized there?
That question, they always ask me that question. Thank you for the question. I think that right now, if you ask the society, if you ask the communities, if you ask all the schools, the private and public schools that we visit, and all the organizations that we make collaborations, they are going to say to you that this is important. Even some very few officials in the Department of Education have been, se acercan a nosotros y nos piden presentaciones y le hacemos las presentaciones, pero todo se queda ahí. En el Departamento de Educación no está sucediendo nada antirracista. There is nothing anti-racist happening in the Department of Education in Puerto Rico. And that's a shame, because here we are in Puerto Rico. They don't even have to deal with me, if that's the case, because I can be very problematic. They can, make some arrangement with other organizations that are doing also work like this. Colectivo ILE are doing work like this. Taller Salud is doing Afrofeminist work like this. But they don't want to. But the schools, they are doing the job. They're buying the books por debajo de la mesa, and they are giving the kids some of the books, and they are sharing, but not de una manera concertada y no desde el curriculum. And I'm talking anti-racist. If we start talking de la perspectiva de género, olvídate que tampoco. Es como si alguien allá adentro dijera, necesitamos continuar en la edad de piedra. Queremos seguir en la edad de piedra. Es lo que yo pienso que está pasando, porque de otro modo no hay lógica. ¿Por qué en el 2020 no hay libros como este en las manos, ¿verdad?, de todos los niños en Puerto Rico? Gracias por la pregunta.
Don't know if
¿Alguien más?
Questions or comments? Yes. Tell me.
Thank you so much for your presentation. You started by mentioning what happened with Alexa last week.
Yes.
And I know you've written Transcaribeñequis. So I was wondering what you see, trans doing in terms of like the literary circles, what kind of possibilities or potentialities are already happening or you see on the horizon?
Mira, I have to admit that the question about Alexa moves me. I'm still not prepared. I am so sad. I'm still cry at night, and I know that we have a very strong and decidido y un grupo de trans women and trans men in Puerto Rico that are trying very hard de llegar a una equidad, de quality. Today, I didn't press play to see the interview that David Bucknott made to some of them, but I know there is there. They are trying hard. But to tell you the truth, de manera me desnudo diciéndote esto, yo no esto me lo esperé jamás. Para mí esto ha sido un golpe muy bajo y muy... Yo no lo vi venir. Quizás, maybe, because of the equal marriage, some of us were like, oh, very comfortable. This is happening. We are moving forward to a better society, and then boom, this happens with Alexa. But this was terrible. Ha sido muy desolador. Así que todavía no tengo respuestas porque todavía estoy asimilando qué hacer. Gracias por la pregunta.
Go ahead. So yes. Okay. I think I'm going to use both languages because there are
It's
things
okay.
that I don't know how to say it in English. You call your first book Caparazones.
Sí.
Like shelters? I don't know.
Shelters, shells or
shells.
carapaces.
Mm-hmm. But my question is, okay, why? It means, are you using your art to, I don't know how to say, to use the shell to hide, or are you trying to go out? Estás saliendo, lo llamaste caparazones porque es una figura para decir que te estás encerrando o estás usando el arte,
la gente,
o lo estás usando para salir.
No, que por mucho tiempo la gente vivió dentro del caparazón, dentro del caparacho de la tortuga. Carapaces is about two women that finds themselves and fall in love while investigates crimes against the turtles in the Caribbean. I was trying to make a statement for ecoterrorism and everything that is happening with global warming, etc. And one is a photographer, and the other is a news paper journalist. And they encountered this. One of them is married with a man and had a daughter, and they fall in love. I also was trying to make a reflection on how you make, in these times, how to make life. One of the women wants, to impregnate the other woman and also had a kid with this woman. And it's like, you remember how in patriarchal times, not these times, some men, like have kids in this family and then go on another family and then go to another family and the spouses, they never knew.
Was it the past?
Hace mucho tiempo, eso ya no pasa.
I don't know about that.
Yo estaba tratando de hacer una reflexión sobre ahora con las libertades que tenemos las mujeres y el acceso que tenemos a la reproducción, si vamos a cometer, déjame no decir esos errores, si vamos a comportarnos de esa misma manera patriarcal. Y ese acercamiento se convirtió en la novela Caparazones. Yo lo que traigo son preguntas más que nada. Entonces, mientras ellas, mientras están haciendo su trabajo de fotografiar el ecoterrorismo que se está dando en Costa Rica y hasta Puerto Rico, se enamoran, deciden tener familia, pero entonces hay otra familia que se está afectando. Y por ahí es que va la cosa. Entonces, los caparazones que usábamos antes por estar dentro del closet, ya no los tenemos, pero estamos usando otros caparazones que nos siguen tapando, ¿no? Yo creo que por ahí es que va.
Yeah, it's actually, I will translate first
Sí,
of all, because
please.
it's really interesting. I want to read it.
Gracias.
So she's talking about her first novel, which is called Caparazes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Carapaces.
Carapaces, yeah. Sorry, it's too late. So, and the story goes, it's two women, and they are researching about the, I would say, yes,
El
the,
tinglar, más que nada.
sorry?
El tinglar, la tortuga tinglar.
Ah, okay. So a kind of tortue that is in danger, and they fall in love, and they are trying actually to create a family, to have kids. The question, so it's great because Yolanda said, I bring here more questions than answers with this novel, and her question was if she was wondering if those women, these lesbian women, gay women, if they were perpetuating a patriarchally system of reproduction in the ways that they were, at the same time that they wanted to create a new family, they were destroying others. And well, I hadn't read the novel, but so I don't know how it goes, but it seems at least, how can I say, it's provocative. It's thought provocative. No, it's a good question. I had sometimes that question. No, if but I can not tell because it's not part of my experience. But if with all this search to somehow, if you know, when non-conformist couples or in relationships are trying, in some cases, are trying to echo or to follow the same systems, you know, they create, and sometimes it's going too
that
far.
Question I sometimes
wonder.
have. It would be a moment. It would be a time for us to completely be nude from the patriarchy.
So it's to you to
Exactly. Until that happens, I need to keep writing because I don't know the answer yet, and I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, which is actually a question that we can also translate to the to race, and it's not
Exactly.
only a question of sexuality in this case, or gender also. Will women always will women at certain point be free from a patriarchal, let's say, in a spectrum over our lives, or even if in the case of the race and the Afro-Descendants, if we are at some point be free of this Eurocentric gaze in which we have
Which is the same question that I have when I wrote this poetry book, Nosotros Soles, looking to answers of trying to review a way in which there are no hierarchical. Is that the
hierarchy? Yeah.
Look at you, I didn't see you.
But he was
No lo había visto. Looking for non-hierarchical relationships,
yes,
more democratic relationships, less patriarchal relationships that we have. You know, marriage, monogamy, polyamory, trying to look what is going on inside of everything of that. That's how Nosotros Soles llegó. But it's also more questions than answers.
which is great. Yeah. I don't know, any other questions?
¿Alguien más?
¿O parece que alguien quiere repetir?
Ajá.
Go ahead.
Sí, claro.
Yeah, I think-
As a follow-up question,
Mhm.
I was curious to know if, as the cátedra approaches the archive, if there's, at the same time, engaging with studies of critical archival studies, like thinking like Michelle Rolfe Trujillo, Silencing the Past, or I don't know, Diana Taylor's Archive and Repertoire, or even Saidiya Hartman's Critical Fabulation. and also whether, in addition to the books, if there's podcasts, video clips, other mediums. Of course, you mentioned the performances, but if there's other things, other forms that are being produced, or is there an importance of the literature aspect, or
Well, right now, because of the funds, we do not have so many funds. We are concentrating on literature only. But for example, in the last presentation on Taller Puertorriqueño, it was on Saturday, one of the visitors that I also admire, William, talked to me about trying to make a collaboration, something, in a multimedia collaboration, and I loved her idea, his idea. So I guess it's gonna be another. It needs to be another phase, eventually. My objective is to keep writing until 2024, which is the complete decade, del 2015 al 2024. That was my objective, to write during a decade, to make many books as possible. And we also been using, nosotros dijimos, vamos a hacer por año 5 libros, porque del bolsillo que teníamos, ¿verdad? De los fondos que teníamos, era lo que lógicamente se podía hacer. Pero han sido muchos más. Ha habido años que hemos publicado 12, 11, 15 libros. Y se suponía que tuviéramos hasta el día de hoy unos 20, y la realidad es que tenemos 42 títulos. Están todos en Amazon. No tenemos como que el dinero para tener inventario de todos, porque realmente no tenemos ese funding. De hecho, estamos buscando funding para hacer otras cosas, pero todavía no lo tenemos. Pero para que vean lo necesario que aparenta que el proyecto era, que se fue solo. y ya tenemos, ¿verdad? Casi 50 libros publicados.
Yes, I will actually translate the last part. It's really important. And it's, well, at the beginning, she thought that only they were planning to publish only 5 books a year, and right now they are publishing 20. You said 20?
Yeah, sometimes, not that
15,
many. 15, 11.
Okay, 15, sorry. I said 20. I was exaggerating. So 15 books a year. And right now they have around 50 books. They are all in Amazon. They cannot afford to have existent so the books for themselves. And so, of course, they are on sale on Amazon. And they are also trying to find more funds so they can continue their project, not only the publishing project, but other projects as well. Because, well, the question was, you were talking about some multimedia projects which would be interesting.
Yes, would be interesting and necessary. The books that we have in inventory are the books that are directly publishing by the university, by EDP University.
Okay.
They are medular in this humanistic and this anti-racist project. EDP University, yo me he dado con un grupo de gente que son hermosos por fuera y por dentro. Y eso es lo que me tiene enamorada del proyecto de la universidad. Que hay, por ejemplo, el libro de Pelo Bueno es un libro que sí tiene una publicación en Amazon, pero también existen libros físicos en Puerto Rico, y se está haciendo un trabajo fenomenal para que en cada rincón de Puerto Rico pueda haber inventario y pueda haber una sala de lectura antirracista que incluya ese libro. Porque todavía tenemos niños, pero muchas niñas, porque es más la estética de las niñas, ¿verdad? Todavía el patriarcado que las hace sufrir por el cabello. Todavía tenemos niñas que piensan que su pelo es malo. De hecho, yo he estado, esto me pasó, y esto lo cuento, pero me pasó fui a visitar una clase y la profesora que estaba dando la clase a nivel universitario, me trae a la clase y me da la sorpresa de que sus estudiantes hicieron dibujos del pelo bueno. Y en un momento dado, mientras ella hablaba, dijo, porque es tan difícil poder dibujar el pelo malo. Y yo quedé... Entonces me volteé y le dije, el pelo bueno. Y ella pues se puso toda roja, ¿no? Porque eso lo tenemos tan metido en el ADN, en el vocabulario, en el lenguaje del que tú hablabas. Yesenia, ¿verdad? Sí, el lenguaje del que tú hablabas, Yesenia, que se nos sale, se nos va en un lapsus, ¿verdad? Y ahí decimos otra vez el pelo malo. Y yo quisiera que mi nieta o mi nieto algún día me pudiera preguntar, mami, abuela, ¿qué era eso del pelo malo? Y yo decir, yes, él no sabe lo que es o ella no sabe lo que es, porque no tuvo que pasar por eso. Yo quisiera que eso sucediera.
Okay.
Mira cómo traduce eso.
That's a lot of it there. Well, let's start with the fact that the EDP University. Yeah. So the university she's working for in Puerto Rico, at least she got support from her university, and she has been able to keep some of the books. So they have in inventory some of the books. One of them is no, there was something also that she said I really want to translate for the others is when you have a project that is so important, it goes it escapes out of your hands, and it is the case of this project when in which, as I told before, as she told before, they started with a plan of 5 books, and then now they have a lot more. And then coming back to the last part of her talk is he was talking about one of the most important books. You don't have a picture of the cover. Yeah, one of the most important books they have. Is that one? One of the most important books they have published, and is actually. They have it in the inventory, and it's somehow they are trying to distribute it. It's actually a bestseller,
yes.
And it's a bestseller, and it's that one, Pelo Bueno, Good Hair, and of course related to. And actually, there was recently this short movie that was that is also celebrating. You can find it. You can
Hair Love.
Hair Love. Yes, you can see it and watch it on YouTube, I guess. Yes. And so it's similar. It's a similar story. And she has been trying. She has been bringing this book and discussing it in the schools. And it was she brought stories when once she went to school, and the teacher was really happy and saying, "Well, here all the students they were able to draw some. Here are the drawings from of good hair, right?" And she's
bad hair.
But yes, and she said, "Oh, it's so hard to draw a bad hair," and Yolanda was she was unhappy. Let's say is the least, and she said something really nice. She hopes that at least her grandchildren would ask her once, "Grandma, what was that of bad hair?"
Bad hair.
Yes.
I would love to.
So yeah, me too, but
that.
who knows? So I think that was most because I cannot remember everything. Yeah.
But I think it's a dream we have, yes. Because I still have to listen to some people who ask me why I don't comb my hair. Oh my God. Yes.
Well, I don't listen at all.
Like, why you don't? You have to comb your hair. Yes. Who said that I don't comb my hair? Yes. Imagine. So now I can deal with that. But when I was a girl, it was.
So that's why we have this.
Another thing that now that I listen to you, I remember that in Taller Puertorriqueño on Saturday, we were talking also about our experience as a Black woman that has interracial relationship with people that they do not know how to manage what we are going through. They don't want, to receive education being anti-racist. They don't understand nuestra lucha. And sometimes inside the couple, inside the love relationship, hay momentos de opresión de parte de la persona de la quien tú recibes amor. Y de eso todavía no se está hablando. Eso todavía está en pañales porque estamos tratando de hacer esto desde la academia o desde la parte social, pero todavía la parte emocional, romántica, no se toca. Y a veces dentro de una relación duelen tantas cosas que nos dice la persona de la que uno está enamorada o que está enamorada de uno, que no está haciendo eso, ¿verdad? Lo está haciendo porque está embedded en todo el patriarcado y todo el racismo que existe. Pero en eso sí que estamos bien cruditos, bien cruditos.
So Yolanda, no, bien cruditos. No.
Cruditos no como...
So Yolanda is making a point, an important point on the, biracial relationships and how, well, there are some studies, sociological and probably mostly sociological and historic studies on that topic, but still in literature is something that hasn't been properly addressed. Well, maybe in African American literature we have some examples, but it's true that in Afro-Latin American literature is something that she says is still crudo, so it's still not, we didn't approach it, no. And so it's, actually she said that the emotional work that is involved in this, that is within this, those relationships haven't been addressed properly, and this is true. Yeah, well, I'm thinking of there is yes, there is this African American author Kathleen Collins. She has a beautiful collection of stories called What Happened to interracial love. This is stories, just stories, and she's addressing that. But of course, it's from the African American literary tradition. So, but we don't have that. You agree? Yes. So you are going to write it.
Let's see.
You have been
because
here.
sometimes it hurts so much.
Yeah, it hurts.
There are certain topics that I try to protect myself in order to keep working on what is important. And I know for a fact that is going to be very difficult for me. So I hope there's others in this army of writers that maybe address that. But it's very difficult because sometimes se rompe la relación y el rompimiento de corazón tiene que ver con que perdiste a esa persona y tiene que ver con las injurias que racialmente te hizo esa persona y que no entiende que te las hizo. Y eso es un dolor grave, gravísimo. Y yo sé que tú sabes de lo que te estoy hablando y muchos de ustedes lo saben.
Sabemos.
Pero es fuerte.
So I was trying to encourage her to write about those topics, and she said that, she wanted but she's trying to protect herself because it's very hard. Not only there is the heartbreaking that we experience in any relationship when it ends, but it's also the emotional heartbreaker too, because of the racial, let's say, I don't know, the racial situations that that we are involved in.
En este libro, Nosotras Soles, hay un poema que trata el tema, es en español, lo voy a leer. No tiene traducción, no sé si... Y voy a leer una partecita porque sinceramente no puedo leer el poema completo porque me va a dar duro. Se titula No pude volver a amarla. No pude volver a amarla después que vi cómo se convertía en salvadora blanca en medio de las cuerpas de niñas huérfanas. Insistía en que aquello era caridad post-huracanes y que alguien debía documentarlo. Insistía en que las caras lindas de mi gente negra aumentaban sus likes y sus views en redes. No pude volver a amarla desde que vi cómo su blancura se apropiaba de mis espacios, usurpaba la etnografía de mis afrohermanas. Se hacía trenzas y se sentaba frente al barril del subidor y entonaba con superficialidad mi cimarronería. No pude volver a amarla mientras ella defendía al amo blanco, a la vez que besaba mi labia negra, mis entornos oscuros, que bebía mi savia transparente y melosa, pero fuera de nuestra cama se iba de parte de quienes me empobrecían. Y ahí lo voy a dejar.
I think this is a wonderful way to close it. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, everybody. Usually, and the plan was until this afternoon to have a cocktail at the end. But given that we are under a pandemic, almost, so the house, Kelly Wright's house, decided to skip the all, the food and until we get safe. So I'm really sorry. I wanted to tell you, well, you can still, of course. And the books are on, some of the books, I don't know exactly which ones are on sale outside. And I wish I can tell you now, well, let's get some wine and discuss, but, well, we can't because of coronavirus. I'm so sorry.
Estamos en cuarentena.
Yes.
Gracias
but
por
thank
venir.
you so much. Yes, for your
Gracias.
Gracias. Eso estuvo bello.
Lindo, ¿verdad?
De
Qué bueno que
verdad.
te gustó.
Sí. Mira,